You know, sometimes I listen to those MPs talk and I say, common sense is not common to everybody. Because you see somebody passes votes for a finance bill that is introducing punitive taxes on the people. Then the next day you are seeing that person complaining about the high cost of living. Not knowing that when you are increasing the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%, the corollary effect of it will be that the price of fuel will go up. You can't see. I mean, somebody who cannot connect. You cannot tell me that it is for lack of personnel that this one person you are bringing as a CS is going to make a fundamental difference in the work that is being done by the department, that all this administrative structure is not able to deliver on. You know, the Kenya Kwanza parliament, I think is the worst parliament in the history of parliamentary politics in this country.
How?
Because all they do is they vote as they are told by the executive.
Well, a very good day to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Candy Talk here on Herman Manyora's YouTube channel. My name is Evans Okinyi. Such a pleasure to always have you on board. This fine morning, I'm joined by Wakili Willis Otieno, to whom we want to have a candid conversation on certain issues that are actually taking place in this country with regard to public governance therein. Wakili, how are you?
I'm very fine.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Let us begin from here. Hardly a day after the High Court actually declared the positions of the chief administrative secretaries unconstitutional, the parliament, of course, members of parliament have decided to actually make this process constitutional through the bill that was presented there by the national, actually the majority leader in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah. Now, let us begin from here. Kenyans opposed these kind of positions that were created back then. I want to get your view in the first place, before even we get to the constitutional bit of it. Are these positions necessary?
The first point that I want to state that the positions are not necessary. Because what is this role that a CS is going to perform that between the CS and the PS, they will not be able to perform?
Okay.
These are just positions which are being created to reward political losers, those who supported a campaign and lost. If you look at the rank and file even of those who Ruto had proposed to be CS, over 90% of them were political losers, people who lost in the last general elections.
Okay.
So, and Kenyans in their numbers have over and over said that they don't need these positions. It adds no value in their lives. It only keeps eating into our public revenue. Because then once you have all these political losers being accommodated as in an office, you have to maintain them. You have to pay their salaries. You have to maintain their staff, buy them big cars, fuel those cars, pay their allowances, extra cost in travel across the world, because that is what they all know how to do. So Kenya don't need these positions.
Okay.
But even if you go to the legality of those positions, you know, when Kenyans came up with their constitution in 2010, they decided to design within that constitution the structure of their government, what you call the basic structure that that government should take. And they said that in every department there shall be a cabinet secretary. And they even limited the number not to be more than 24. Then the second point, they also recognized the position of principal secretary. They moved away from permanent secretary to principal secretary. So if Kenyans desired to have the positions of CAS in their governance structure, nothing will have stopped them from doing so. Because at the time when you were passing this constitution 2010, we are the position of minister, we are the position of assistant minister, which this CSS purport to be. And we are the positions of permanent secretary in law. Kenyans said, do away with the minister, call them cabinet secretary. Do away with assistant ministers completely. You don't need CS. Then they did away with permanent secretaries and replaced them with principal secretaries. And over, even when Uhuru tried it, when this last attempt, public participation on the CSS nominees, they attempted it, the overwhelming public view has been a total rejection of this position that they're calling CAS because it adds no value to our lives. And there's one thing that I must also indicate. You know, in Article 10 of our Constitution, there's the principle of public participation. And the courts have, over the years, attempted to explain what public participation is. And there's what we call quantitative and qualitative public participation. Qualitative to mean that the quality of the response that the people have made to you must have a bearing on the decision which you are going to make that was subject to public participation. So that if you went and asked Kenyans to make presentations on memorandum on the CSS, and 90% of them told you, we don't need the office of a CAS. You cannot ignore those views and move straight to a point in ignoring what the people said. That now turns public participation to be a sham. Because whatever the people are going to say is meant to inform the decision you are going to make. If in their totality they've unanimously rejected the position, then do away with it.
Okay.
Because it means they don't want it. And if you were to hold a Q&A or even a referendum on CSS, I can assure you, Kenyans will, in their numbers, unanimously reject a CAS as an office in this country. We don't need it. We never needed it. We moved away from it in 2010 when we did away with the assistant ministers. We didn't need it when Uhuru was in power. And we didn't need it with Ruto in power. But these problems of Jubilee that keeps chipping and eating into our constitutional fabric to undermine our legal framework. These bad manners of Jubilee, we saw it with Uhuru, we are seeing it with Ruto also now in Kenya Kwanza. That they just want to design a system that is totally in parallel to our constitutional needs. They don't believe in this basic document that we as Kenyans have committed ourselves to be governed under. Because in our commitment, we want a very lean government. Because we understand that the question of maintaining a bloated government ultimately is transferred to Kenyans. It is that poor woman in the market who is selling groceries, vegetables, tomatoes, that they collect money from VAT when she goes to buy a matchbox, that is paying VAT when she goes to buy fuel, that you are now using her money to fund the Lajis of a CS here in Nairobi, who is a political reject, who is on locality voters. When he presented himself to be elected to something, totally rejected him. These CSS, all of them, almost 90%, let me say, were rejected by voters when they offered themselves to lead in whatever shape or form.
Okay.
Then now you are creating an illegal structure to force the people who rejected them and others to now sustain them in public office with no meaningful value that they will add into us, into our economy or even into our governance.
Okay.
Because if there was any value that a CS will add to the lives of Kenyans, Uhuru, despite the court process, maintained them for almost 3-4 years. What was the value of those CSs, if you asked anybody, even if you ask any of them? None. They didn't make any meaningful contribution to our lives. What did they do that the CS and the PS could not do? Nothing. So we are just having a bloated government and you are imposing more and more economic burden on our people.
Back then, while actually defending these positions, even after going ahead and appointing them, here we found ourselves in this situation whereby the president actually defended, and he said that we are in a bad state as a country. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And that is why he needs this additional manpower to help him steer the country in the right direction. Why do you find it difficult buying the president's idea?
It's very simple. You see, the last I checked, in any ministry, you have the CS, you have the PS. In fact, in some of those departments, they are even up to 3 PSs, 2 or 3. Then within the department, now you have other further departments which are broken down based on their speciality,
Okay.
which are headed by directors. You have undersecretaries in those ministries, right? You have directors. You have heads of departments. You have now office managers. You have officers. It's not like in the Ministry of Interior, for example, that it is just between CS Kindiki and PS Omolo and it ends there. No. We have a totally, fully staffed administrative unit that runs all the way to the village elder, helping to deliver on the government's mandate. Tell me what value Millicent Omanga will add when she turns around dancing at the Ministry of Interior.
Because there's a light note though. Because
Yeah, that's not light, but just tell me what value is it that, which is this heavy work that needs to be done in the Ministry of Interior, that CS Kindiki is overwhelmed, cannot perform, that him and PS Omolo are overwhelmed, that it needs the special skills of Millicent Omanga to join them. Because within the ministry, we have a cadre, and I've told you, right from Nairobi, Harambee House, to county, to sub-county, all the way to the village. Chiefs and assistant chiefs, right? And any department, every department within that ministry, be it prisons, be it police, be it betting, be it department on Nakada. Again, an entire structure that percolates all the way down. So you cannot tell me that it is for lack of personnel that this one person you are bringing as a CS is going to make a fundamental difference in the work that is being done by the department, that all this administrative structure is not able to deliver on. If that one person is the magic bullet, then do away with the entire structure and give that person the job to do alone. Right? Then sack your CS. Make this person the CS. Because there is no justification. There is no reason. None. That any sane person can give to justify having a CS.
Okay.
I have told you, it is not like CSS were not there before. They are christened as assistant ministers. We had them. In fact, at the time when we were passing our Constitution of Kenya 2010, we had 88 assistant ministers and 44 cabinet secretaries. That was ministers. We had them, 88. And we consciously decided to change the structure of our governance by totally removing assistant ministers. Because they were many, they were 88 doing nothing. Just living off our sweat. Do away with assistant ministers, the cadre. Now you are trying to come back and tell us that your departments are overwhelmed, that now political rejects are the ones who will do the work that the provincial, the civil service structure cannot perform. Then there's a problem with your structure. There's actually a problem with the personnel you've put to head those departments. Then sack those ones and give these your political rejects the jobs to do. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's now get it from here. Now, before these people were actually sworn in by the president in the State House, the judiciary decided to actually keep off. The National Assembly, led by the Speaker Moses Wetangula, refused to actually vet these people because they were saying that, Moses Wetangula said that there's no law that requires him to vet these people here because definitely speaking, whatever he was saying is that those positions were unconstitutional because they were not anchored on the law. And that is why he refused to do that. Now, we are seeing a process whereby these positions have been brought back to Parliament and that regularization process is now going on. Now, in this case, the same Parliament that rejected these people because the Constitution back then did not allow is the same Parliament that now wants to bring in this. Now, where does the Parliament of the country actually finds itself in? Is it that they're actually bowing to the whims of the executive arm of the government right now?
They've been doing that. You know, the Kenya Kwanza Parliament, I think it's the worst parliament in the history of parliamentary politics in this country.
How?
Because all they do is they vote as they are told by the executive. They are not representing the people. they think they represent the executive. Parliament is meant to be an oversight institution to the executive. That's the primary role of Parliament. Represent the people and oversight the executive and legislate. Those are the three primary functions of Parliament. But the Kenya Kwanza Parliament that we have today, you know, sometimes I listen to those MPs talk and I say, common sense is not common to everybody. Because you see somebody passes votes for a finance bill that is introducing punitive taxes on the people. Then the next day you are seeing that person complaining about the high cost of living. Not knowing that when you are increasing the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%, the corollary effect of it will be that the price of fuel will go up. You can't see, I mean, somebody who cannot connect the decision he makes and its impact on his people. There's a big problem.
Okay.
Now, that's the same person that you expect. That's why I say it's the worst in the history of parliamentary politics in Kenya. That they rejected this, and rightfully so. They rejected, in my view, rightfully so, to say there is no legal provision for us to vet you, we will not vet you.
Okay.
Now, the same parliament has now proposed a law. Because in terms of the structure of government, the vetting of a PS, the vetting of a CS is in the constitution. Right?
Yes, yes.
Now, the same parliament now goes to propose a bill, not to amend the constitution, to introduce CS, but an act of parliament to establish an office in an act of parliament over CS. The same parliament. Then they want to debate it. They want to restructure government outside the architecture provided in our constitution. That is where I have a big problem with the parliamentary thinking of Kenya Kwanza Parliament today. I hope one day they get their Damascus moment. Everybody is entitled to Damascus moment, Paul to Damascus moment. And they will start seeing the folly of their ways. That as a parliament, it's not their role to dance to the tune of the executive. The Jubilee Parliament did the same to Uhuru Kenyatta. They danced to Uhuru's tune, and that is why we are in this mess today. When you hear Kimani Chungwa explaining the debt problem, I mean the revenue problem that we have, the economic challenges we have, but the same, and blaming Uhuru Kenyatta, the same Kimani Chungwa at any given time always led and moved motions to increase the debt ceiling in this country. Cheering Uhuru Kenyatta as they were creating this mess with with Ruto. So we must have some consistency so that a decision I make today should be a decision I can defend even in 50 years' time. And I know that this decision we are making today has this impact on the lives of our people. Every 5 years or every 10 years, even in a decade, in a generation, in a century. But the Jubilee politicians, they amaze me. Today when you hear the ones in Kenya Kwanza, because they are still Jubilee to me. They are all Jubilee. If you hear the ones in Kenya Kwanza talk about Jubilee, you just have to even ask yourself, was I in the same country? Because Jubilee, they are the ones championing and trumpeting its cause. Today, they are championing and trumpeting Kenya Kwanza's cause. They are failing in their primary mandate, which is oversight, legislation, and representation. If they just focused on the key one of them, what we say the key one, the most important of them, is oversight. Because that is where the impact of a lack of oversight on the lives of people is greater. Because you fail to oversight the executive properly. The impact of its decisions on the people leads to loss of lives, leads to shattered dreams. It messes up a country for generations. So that is why Parliament, as a tool, should never shirk away from its oversight responsibility over the executive. Because executive decisions messes up an entire generation.
Okay.
And I can tell you, there is a generation in our country today that just based on the policies of Jubilee and Kenya Kwanza have been messed up because Parliament failed to oversight them.
Well and good, ladies and gentlemen, that is it from Wakili Willis Otieno here. Definitely you've had the kind of conversation that we've had here. You can weigh in on this conversation, comment down there. Tell us what you think about the planned regularization of these posts of course of the chief administrative secretaries. The parliamentarians now want to make them constitutional, bring them there, so that at the end of the day these people get the job. Do you think that perhaps the executive arm of the government will have its way in this, or is it that the parliament is just doing its role? But of course you've heard what Wakili here said. Comment there, tell us what you think, and of course keep it here at Herman Manyora, keep it at the Kandi Talk, and of course stay tuned to some of our programs. Jadel Kabiro, as well as your very own Richard Mwenja, will also be here to discuss a number of issues that are actually taking place in the country. From my end, I'm more than glad to have you on board. And of course, I want to wish you all the best. Have yourself a lovely day. My name is Evans Okinyi.